All right. Well, gobble, gobble, people. Welcome into this Friday. It is November the 29th. We certainly hope that your Thanksgiving was a profitable one. Hope you enjoyed the day. I'm Joe Raineri. He is Ralph Michaels. It's another edition of the Happy Hour Tip-Off Show powered by WagerTalk.com, where we got you covered everything there is to know about college basketball. And like we do, Ralph, I'd like to start here, of course, recapping a little bit of what happened there yesterday. We were able to do a Thanksgiving special edition where it was a limited card, but actually things went pretty according to what we had said they were going to be, Ralph. A couple of upsets last night, and I guess there's no better place to start than, the Zags blowing a, 16, 17-point lead? Oregon they won't go away. What a game that was.
Yeah, a game that looked like Oregon was going to pull it out late, but, go into overtime and the Zags win but don't cover. So, we saw some good basketball yesterday. Michigan and North Carolina and, Iowa, Texas Tech, and Memphis, NC State. Yeah, you were on that Memphis side. Yep. So, a limited card, but Thanksgiving's changed now with the battle for Atlantis and a couple of those Florida tournaments and the tournament here in Las Vegas. There used to not be Thanksgiving basketball. That ain't the case anymore.
A lot of truth to that, and we take a look here at some of what we had there yesterday, some of those biggest upsets, guys. I mean, as you can see, there were a few of them there. Iowa, Texas Tech, Michigan, North Carolina, Memphis, NC State. How about Wake Forest? That was another one we kind of shook our head at there, Ralph. We talked about that in the line movement going, what are we missing? We got money moving away from Wake. It's going to Charleston. Like, what are we missing?
Yeah, and you look at the numbers and, some of those are considered upsets. And for those new to the show, normally we just list the top 5 upsets and we list how many. So there were only 3 upsets of dogs by 2.5 or more. Right. But since we only had those couple limited games, I just added the lower 2, which aren't really upsets when you're within a basket of pick 'em. But just so people get the thought process that, NC State and Charlotte were favored over Memphis and Wake Forest.
Yeah, one of the other storylines there yesterday, Ralph, I guess we should start taking note because it's around that time of year here, guys, where we start to see, some of the identities of some of these teams come into fruition. But what in the hell, Ralph, is going on with Texas Tech? Are we just overvaluing them because of what we saw last year and because Chris Beard, we've seen him make, mountains out of molehills? Like, is it, he does it a little bit differently. It's transfer. He does it a little bit differently each and every year. It worked last year, not working out so well so far this year.
Well, I mean, you're still 5-1 and you lost to a damn good Iowa team, in a neutral setting. The difference, though, with Chris Beard's team in Lubbock is that for each of the last 4 years, he's had at least 2 senior starters, and he hasn't started freshmen. Well, this year he has no senior starters, having to start a couple freshmen. So you're going to see a team that is going to, they're going to play good defense. Mm-hmm. They're top 10 defense because of their tradition and their history and what they brought in, who they played. But I think you're going to see some people expose them coming up here. And like a lot of teams that play that type of defense, you're going to see them progress as the season goes on. And, just keep that in your mind as you're handicapping them. But, they got another battle with Creighton today. And, we'll see. If they lose again to Creighton, wouldn't be a shock to me.
Yeah, and listen, Iowa smoked them. But I don't know that Iowa is necessarily as good as we thought or at least compared to what we saw last year, but I think they were certainly the best competition Texas Tech had seen thus far.
Well, Iowa can't play defense. They sure can play offense. They are a good offensive team. Yep. They push the tempo. They're not one of the fastest teams, but they're one of the top 50 fastest teams. And you have a bunch of scores with Weiskamp and Garza and Fredrickson and Bohannon, and multiple guys can score if someone has a cold night. Right. Their problem is stopping people. We saw DePaul run over them and put up, I think, 90 points. Iowa was at home and allowed 90 points to DePaul. So if Iowa's playing a poor shooting team, that's something you can look at. And Texas Tech's offense is middle of the road. And again, a lot of young kids where you look at their leading players as far as percentage of minutes wise. are two freshmen and a sophomore.
Yep.
So you have a lot of young kids, and you're in a neutral setting. And you've talked about it. We talked about neutral settings and the sight lines, and
Yep.
The Orleans Arena here is a small arena in Vegas, but it's still so much different than playing at a normal college arena that they're accustomed to.
So true there. And also, guys, we go down a list here. Some of the biggest against the spread covers, some over-unders, and, of course, this is the part of the time where we love Ralph's painting. And he gives us all sorts of colors there. And, obviously, if you guys know green is money, Ralph, and that's where the money lied in those top three. We talked about San Diego State yesterday. We thought they certainly had an edge. It was a low number going into that at 2.5. We just talked to Iowa, Texas Tech. But then how about Long Beach State? Anybody see Long Beach State coming through there yesterday?
Well, I didn't see Long Beach State, but certainly have seen Providence with their struggles. Yeah. Providence now is only 4-3 on the year, and their wins are against nobody. Mm-hmm. Their best win is against Sacred Heart. Losing to anyone else they played well, Northwestern, Penn, and Long Beach State. So the Providence team, Ed Cooley's unit is down quite a few notches than what it was last year. Will they turn it around? Yeah, they're going to turn it around. Mm-hmm. But right now, they're just struggling to go through the process of finding the right scores, and they haven't found them yet.
How about Iowa State, Alabama yesterday? We laughed, right, about the total in that game while we were on air yesterday live doing the show. We're going, how many points do you think are going to be scored in the second half of this game, Ralph? And Ralph's answer was, I ain't ever betting an under on these guys. I can tell you that. And talk about a team that plays fast. Wow.
Yeah, when you cover by 44 points and those games weren't in overtime.
Yeah.
Arizona's another fast-paced team. That was the Pepperdine game that you gave out as a best bet. Congrats. Yeah. Easy winner as, they covered wire to wire. But you look at those unders. USC surprised me scoring in the 50s. That's not a score that I would have thought. The total was low. It was only 130, but still they went under by 30 points. That Wake Forest game, again, a low-scoring game, went under by 19.5. And Harvard, we mentioned, those not following college basketball are going to say Harvard's a favorite against A&M. Well, A&M is still struggling with some injuries in their backcourt, and you're missing your backcourt guards. Harvard is legit.
Yes, and they can score. Texas A&M can't score. That's the problem. Texas A&M doesn't score, and you got a team that actually – and they got healthier. They were banged up a little bit.
Yeah, and, the Harvard team – will have all 5 starters back. I think they're still missing one of their returning starters, but they're a team that I don't think they'll get there because they probably wouldn't need to almost run the table in the non-conference, but they were close where an Ivy team perhaps could get an at bid with what they do, but they're going to be 20 wins now and could be more than that. But Harvard's a team certainly to watch out for.
Yep, and then, of course, some of the top performers there from yesterday. Ralph would like to throw a few names out at folks.
Look at the top 2, Joe. Yep. One head-to-head. What a matchup.
Look at that, 34-23. I mean, look at that. You got Petty, you got Halliburton, man, Iowa State, Alabama. No wonder why this thing scored almost 300 points. And
you could say Halliburton's line was actually better, 23, 11, and 9. You're one assist away from a triple-double.
Yep.
And Halliburton's name, we've mentioned his name, I think, 2 times already this year. So
correct.
No surprise there. Alabama, like I said, Petty, you're going to see him again because Nate Oates from Buffalo has that tempo, and his guys are going to have the opportunity to score. There's no question.
And, of course, Josh Green there, Arizona. You're going to be hearing his name a lot there, 24, 8, 5, and 3. And Marcus Howard. Do people need to be reminded about Marcus Howard? If you do, we're going to be talking about that name a lot as well here. Maybe the most prolific scorer in college basketball this year?
Oh, I think he leads the country in scoring, no question. You're on a Marquette team that he is the go-to player, and it's just fun watching a guy 5'11" do what he does.
Yep, absolutely. So, like we do every time, guys, we like to also take a look here at some of the. We'll dive into the market here in a minute, but we do like to talk a little trends and angles here, Ralph. Something on the board here today that you might have seen, an upcoming game. We did start early today, in fact. I believe a couple of 11 a.m. games that are on the board. But was there a trend or an angle today that stuck out to you?
Yeah, there's a couple I have that are going a little later this evening. And, one is Florida against Marshall. Florida's laying 20 points tonight against Marshall. Florida has lost their last 12 games against the spread. They started off the season poorly. They lost to Florida State. They just are not playing well. We're looking at San Francisco at Hawaii. San Francisco has gone over the total 9 straight times, and Hawaii is 4-0 over under their last 4 at home. Missouri State on the road. Missouri State 1-11 over under their last 12 road games. And Utah. Remember, we talked about Utah and Minnesota. Utah was a dead over team. Minnesota was a dead under team. They just played each other. That Utah game went under the total, but Utah 9-1 over under at home. They were 9 straight before that Minnesota game. And what we'll always preface by saying, these are just trends for you to look at, perhaps make a play stronger or downgrade a play if you like the trend, but never base a play solely on a trend. I'm looking at some scores, Joe, and it's, you have North Carolina up by 2 with 1 second to go against Oregon. But what caught my eye was Chicago State is the worst team in college basketball. The WAC wasn't normally lying. People didn't know about it. I think Florida State was laying 47 against them. But they were getting 20 against Jacksonville State today, and it's tied up with 9 minutes to go in the game.
It's welcome to college basketball, guys. No better time at all. And also want to remind you, no better time for you guys to head over to wagertalk.com as a way of all of us here at wagertalk.com and sportsmemo.com. Want to wish you guys a very safe and happy holiday weekend here. Our way of saying thanks, giving you an opportunity to grab any play that you want. Just $9 here right through Monday, guys. That means you get the weekend, every play, every handicapper right there on wagertalk.com and sportsmemo.com, including Ralph's plays all weekend long. Just $9. Take advantage of it over at wagertalk.com, sportsmemo.com. And Ralph, as we take a look here at the market here, some of the movers and shakers, we like to take a look at some of the line movements going on and a couple of interesting games, Ralph, that stuck out to me. Get your thoughts on it. 2 games with some serious handle coming in a little bit later today, early this evening. How about 9:30 tonight, VCU Purdue, Ralph? VCU Purdue. It's always fascinating to me to take a look at the market line when we start getting the handle up there. And when we start getting these games that are almost 50-50 split, it's very interesting to me because this line opened up 2.5 Purdue. It remains 2.5 Purdue, even with the amount of handle that's coming in. The total, it's hovering right around 128 it opened up with. It's 128.5. There's a 129. But for the most part, the market seems to be split on these two teams, VCU, Purdue, but yet a lot of bets coming in their way.
Well, we're going to talk about this game as part of our featured board doubleheader. Both of these games down in Niceville, and both of these games, this as well as the Florida State game, a pair of a doubleheader on TV on CBS Sports Network.
Nice.
So, you see these TV games, and that's why. And, like I said, we'll talk about this game in a bit. And, again, just to recap, if you hear this, we're getting a lot of new people each day. So we want to remind people, the featured games will always be late-time night games. They'll always tip after 7 o'clock. So while there may be better games earlier in the day, we're going to pass those to talk about featured games that tip. This is one of those we'll talk about in a minute.
Perfect. Another game getting an awful lot of love here, Ralph, which is interesting. And I do want to say, too, you had mentioned, Florida in your early. That also is getting an awful lot of love here, which cracks me up. But how about Iowa State Seton Hall tonight here, Ralph? Also getting a ton of love, only there is a clear favorite on the market here. And it ain't Seton Hall. It's Iowa State. Seton Hall opened up as a 3.5-point favorite. That's already been moved down to 2 here, Ralph, and it looks like it's going to continue to go that way as 32% of the bets on Iowa State, but it's starting to approach 70% of the money right now.
I'm indifferent in this game. The line is where I thought it would be, but I'll tell you what, to me, you watch what Miles Powell has done, maybe the best player in the country. And you look at Seton Hall, and maybe they haven't blown out some of their opponents that they should have. You beat St. Louis by 17. Yeah, that's a good win. And you did beat Southern Miss by 25. Mm-hmm. Your losses are to Oregon by 2 points, and Oregon's as good as any team in the country. And you lost to Michigan State by 3 at home. So I couldn't bet against Seton Hall at this point in time.
One other game, too, Ralph. Real late here, but boy, oh boy, a lot of movement. How about St. Mary's, who talk about watching paint dry, taking on Utah State here, Ralph, tonight, 11:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Another one of these big line movements. Also, a whole lot of money coming in that way. Opened up as a St. Mary's -5. Now moved down to -2.5 as a lot of money coming in on Utah State. They're getting not only a big share of the tickets, also a huge share of the money, Utah State. And we usually talk about St. Mary's in totals aspect of it and tempo. And the number is it's hanging strong, 135.5 it opened, and it's holding strong here. A lot of people siding with Utah State in this.
Well, Utah State, a top 40 tempo team. So, Craig Smith does have the Aggies in his second year playing very fast. So no surprise on the total, because I wouldn't want to go against Utah State's offense and their tempo. You look at what Utah State has done. Joe, you're pretty good at this. You automatically just merge these segments, and I'm going to go in, and this is my situational play. Perfect. Because I am looking at St. Mary's with revenge. St. Mary's was a 4.5-point favorite last year. They lose 80-63 against this Utah State team. Mm-hmm. And then when I look at St. Mary's and I say, well, we're going against a Utah State team that's one of the 30 teams left undefeated, and a very good Utah State team that is a team that might get an at-large bid if they don't win their conference. But their only win against the top 200 team is against LSU in a neutral setting, and they won by 2. So this Utah State squad has played 5 games at home. They've played 2 neutral games, and this is their first game in a hostile environment. So I am backing St. Mary's as our situational play with revenge, coming off, again, getting Utah State in their first true road game, and St. Mary's revenge for a 17-point loss as a 4.5-point favorite last year.
Oh, I love that. All right, so guys, we do have we always like to look at our dogs on the day, and of course we did that yesterday, and we picked out a couple of teams there that we felt that might be going the other way. Good opportunity for a money line play on a dog, Ralph. And is there a game on the board here tonight that kind of stuck out to you here a little bit?
Yeah, is it the last game on the board? I'm not sure if it is or not tonight, but I'm going with Hawaii at home. San Fran, a solid team. You're looking at a team that lost your head coach. So you have a first-year head coach. Golden came from inside the program. Their coach, of course, Kyle Smith, has moved on to Washington State, a well-deserved job. So Kyle Smith has gone from Columbia to San Francisco, now to Washington State. But in this first year for the new head coach for the Dons, they made one road trip. They played Southern Illinois earlier in the year at one of those mini tournaments. Hawaii back at home. Hawaii's losses at home were against South Dakota, a game they didn't shoot well, and against Illinois, a very good team. I like the guards for Hawaii, and I think they pull the upset here against San Francisco. Joe, tell us you've been red hot on these plays,
crushing it. And I got to tell you, Ralph, I'm gonna take a page out of your book. I'm gonna double dip here a little bit. I'm sorry, man. I love the VCU Rams. Absolutely love them in this spot here, going up against Purdue. And I know we'll talk about this game coming up, but I'm going to take a little twist on it too. I love, because knowing, let's face it here, Purdue is, 352nd, 353rd, I think, in pace. This is not a team that's going to chuck it up an awful lot here, guys. This is not going to be a very high-scoring game. I do like VCU. I like them in the first half. They usually tend to come out. They come out swinging. They get really suffocating on you defense-wise. So I do think that VCU, I like them full game, but I'm going to go ahead and lay them first half in this game. They are getting, I believe, a point and a half in this. So I'll go ahead and take VCU first half, Ralph, in this matchup.
Well, let's just continue on and just go into our marquee matchup, Joe, because this is one of the two marquee matchups. And, the thing that's interesting is, Havoc at VCU, doesn't matter who's coaching, they continue to do it. Their steal rate is very high. It's number 2 in the country. Their block percentage is very high. It's 2 in the country. You have length. I mean, all of your guys, you don't have anyone tall. Mm-hmm. And that's the interesting part of this matchup, is because you've got guys 6'6", 6'7" that just run around and play crazy defense and press you. Well, on Purdue, you're dealing without Carson Edwards, one of the best scorers, ever in college basketball. But you do have a veteran guard. You do have Nojel Eastern back, and he's a 6'6" or 6'7" point guard. So that's a unique setting. And then you add in Matt Harms, you have a 7'3" guy in the middle. So, VCU's a bunch of 6'6" guys, and your point guard's 6'6", and you got a 7'3" guy. The thing I like about your play, Joe, is when you have a team that is as well coached as Purdue, as slow paced as Purdue, you tend to learn how to take care of Havoc and play better in the second half because you can make your adjustments.
Correct.
So the first half part really sticks out for me, that I agree with that.
Yep.
And, I would lean with the first half under as well. In this neutral setting, this is a small little stadium, and agree with that side and agree with the under in the first half.
Yeah, I love it. I also love even the under in the, given what we know about these two teams. VCU will try to push the pace here a little bit. We know that, but the under 4-1 in Purdue's last 5 versus the Atlantic 10 here. And I think this is going to be a defensive battle. And I do think Purdue will make some adjustments there in the second half, but I still think we're looking at an under and a classic defensive battle. And one of the other games there, Ralph, featured here. What are we going to go back off of? Let's see. We already have, what is that, Michigan, Gonzaga, right? That's going to be tipping off shortly here. But you mentioned...
Yeah, we're gonna do the doubleheader in Niceville, the Florida State, Tennessee.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, you're looking at 2 top 25 teams, 2 legitimate top 25 teams. Now, I had to look up where Niceville was, so it's well, okay. Do you know, Joe?
No, it's not a place I would visit. That's for sure. It seems to be way too nice for me, man. Niceville.
It's up by Pensacola and Panama Beach.
Yes. Oh, wow.
So,
Florida.
You're very close to Tallahassee. This is going to be a Florida State pro crowd. There's no question. You're probably, an hour away?
That's correct.
Probably less than that. So, you do have that crowd. You do have Florida State that was missing one of their key pieces early in the loss to Pittsburgh, and even the Florida win. They're back now. Leonard Hamilton, he loves his team, folks. He was picked like middle of the ACC, like 7th or 8th. And he just laughs and he says, wait till you see these guys play. And I believe him. And they have just passed the eye test in my book. Tennessee, very few people lost as much as Tennessee did last year. When you look at Grant Williams and Sheffield and, the guys that left and how big of a program they are. And yes, they take care of business as well, but all 4 of Tennessee's games have been at home. They have 1 neutral win against Washington. And, Washington's a good team, but Washington's another team where They're learning to play the defense. Mike Hopkins plays the Syracuse defense. And we've talked about Syracuse, how they start the season slower on defense because the kids got to get adjusted to that 2-3 zone. Well, Hopkins plays the exact same zone as Boeheim does at Syracuse. They have that slow start as well. So knocking off Washington by 13 was a good win, but to me, not a great win. So this is the first time they're playing away from home against a top 50 opponent. Florida State basically playing, I would say, a neutral home. I give them at least 2 points for the home edge here. And the eye test to me clearly has me on Florida State today.
Yeah, love that. I'd also tend to look at the over in that game as well here, Ralph. We're talking about a Seminoles team that generally know Leonard Hamilton and company pride themselves on defense there, being long, being athletic, being able to prevent scoring, but they're doing the work on the other side of the court there, Ralph. I think they've scored at least 80 points in 3 straight games, and of course you mentioned Chicago State's like playing a high school team, but still they scored 113 there. The overs also in the Volunteers' last 12, 9-2-1. They're 7-0 in the over in their last 7 neutral site games. So I tend to think that there might be, especially in the second half, a little bit more scoring in this. It's a low number, opened up at 134. I do lean the over in this matchup as well.
Can't argue that point. Earlier, North Carolina did hold on to beat Oregon by 4, 78-74. So that game is a North Carolina cover. They were a 2-point dog. It goes over. Maryland wins, but does not cover against that Harvard team where you just talked about, that experienced Harvard team. They were laying 9.5. The game flew over the total by about 14 points.
Yep.
And Jacksonville State up 6 with 1:44 to go. Chicago State will be an easy 20-point cover.
Yeah, piece of cake. Love it. All right. This time of the show, guys, we like to throw out a best bet for you here, making sure that you head into the weekend there, making it a profitable one, certainly in college hoops. So, Ralph, of all the games here on the board, which one you looking at? Where you going best bet here tonight?
I'm going to total, and early in the year, I usually like playing unders, and this is a low total, 137, which usually has me looking at the under, but I'm going contrarian. Iowa's a fast-paced team. Iowa will push the tempo. They scored 85 against Poly. They scored 83 against North Florida, 87 and 87 against SYU Edwardsville. And San Diego State, while they tried to slow it down, and it's tough to get through their defense, their offense is middle of the road. I think we're getting some real value here with the 137 total. I'm going over San Diego State and Iowa.
I love that. And I got to tell you, Ralph, we mentioned this game earlier. I like the line movement. I like where it's going. I also like this underdog as a money line winner, too. I'm going to go Utah State taking on St. Mary's here tonight. It's a huge clash. I think that this might have a little bit of effect on the rankings as we move forward as well. They're undefeated, Utah State, right? They're going up against the Gales in St. Mary's. They're 7-0 right now. I was really impressed with the win over LSU there a couple of games ago as well. The Gales, they lost to, I believe, a shocking one. Was it Winthrop State, who's taking on Duke here today? I think they're getting 30 or some stupid number along those lines. They've won 4 straight since that home loss to the Winthrop Eagles. To me, I kind of like where the direction of Utah State is. Well coached, they'll push the tempo, they'll make them feel uncomfortable. I got no problem taking the points here, but I would not at all be opposed to sprinkling a little something on the money line, and Utah State wins this game outright tonight.
And Joe, we need to bring up the point to our viewers now. While I took St. Mary's as a situational play, it's not one of my best bets. It's something I'm looking at that I lean that way.
Right.
We're not going to candy coat things and agree with each other all the time. We're going to butt heads in certain situations. We don't talk about what we're using on the show because we don't want it scripted. We want it to be a realistic show. So, while I look at St. Mary's and say, hey, I think they'll get revenge for the loss, you obviously have a completely different aspect going with your best bet. So, yes, we're well aware there's 2 things on opposite sides, and we're not going to hype one that wins and not mention the other. It's not that kind of show.
Nope.
It's a realistic show to, not only give you some opinions, but just to help you learn about college basketball, help you become a better betting handicapper when you're handicapping college basketball. And occasionally things like this happen where, plays will conflict with each other.
Yep, and that's what it's all about, guys, because the more you understand both sides of the story, listen, the outcome's going to be the outcome. Somebody's going to be right, somebody's going to be wrong, but it's a long-ass season. It's not going to be the last time we're either betting on St. Mary's or Utah State. So knowledge is power. We say it all the time on this show. The more knowledge you have, the better handicapper you'll be, the more profitable you will be in the long run. And there's a lot. There's a lot on the table, a lot going on, certainly in college basketball. And on the flip side, I'll take the 24 points from Winthrop to do the same thing to Duke tonight. How's that? Give me Winthrop and covering at 24 points. Damn, Duke coming off of that loss. You don't know what you're going to get, Ralph.
Well, Winthrop's off a 127-83 win. Oh, that was against Pfeiffer. Yeah, that's right. Pfeiffer. I can tell you, I'm pretty good at mascots. I don't know Pfeiffer's mascot.
Exactly. It shows you what a lot of teams in college basketball, guys. All right, that does it for us. Once again, do not forget, wagertalk.com, sportsmemo.com, $9 right through the weekend, guys. Our way of saying thank you very much for hanging out with us, watching us. You can head over to sportsmemo.com. You can hang out at wagertalk.com. Check out Ralph's page at wagertalk.com, at CalSportsLV. Do yourself a favor. Make sure you're tailing him on Twitter. So, Ralph, always
Joe,
fun.
One more note for you, bud.
Go.
Sorry to jump in. Just a reminder, guys, if you are in Vegas or you happen to be in Vegas this weekend, we will all be at the Superbook USA Sportsbook on Sunday.
Okay.
For the second game from 1 o'clock on. Marco will be there. Brian Leonard will be there. Johnny, Detroit's flying in. Missy from the office will be there. Kelly from Vegas will be there. Really, it's a meet and greet for our customers. We're buying you some beers and, pick up a Wager Talk hat or coffee mug. But we'll be at Superbook USA Sunday for the second and third games. So from 1 o'clock Pacific on, come by, stop by, say hello.
I'm looking for my invitation. I must have misplaced it, Ralph. I'm sorry, I didn't see that invite. No problem. That's
Joe,
fine. No problem.
Listen, Joe.
Nope.
When we say, Joe, can you come to Vegas for a meet and greet? And your response is, what time will you send the jet? Yeah, you're not invited.
No,
when you're that much of a prima donna, Joe, we can't afford you.
The question is, wait a minute, what's the weather? What's that temperature again here? Yeah, because I ain't got clothes or anything less than 70, so we're good to go. Ralph Michaels, wagertalk.com, guys. Best of luck with your plays. Have a great weekend. We'll be back at it on Monday. Ralph, good luck to you, buddy.
Talk to you on Monday, Joe. Thanks.